Cool. All right, guys. Welcome to round 2 of the PPC battle, where we're going to talk about DSP, which is demand side platform, and sponsored display beta. And so what we'll see is, so GoToWebinar has a limit of 6 cameras. So we'll kind of like alternate cameras when certain people are speaking, just because so you can see people's faces and stuff like that. That's why George, you can't see George at the moment. So we'll just like turn ourselves off at some point so that everybody can be seen.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so we've got, all right. Does everybody know as far as like the chat or the questions? What do they call it in GoToWebinar? Is it the chat?
Yeah. So guys, yeah, question box.
Put a 1 or something in there. Let us know that you're you got a pulse.
All right, Elizabeth Green posted a 1. Caleb Enyart. Anybody else posting a 1? You can hear us and all that stuff, and you're here. Adrian, Giovanni, Nate Johnson. All right, Nicole Gayhad. Cool. So it looks like we're good.
Good. Oh, I see chat here. Yeah. No questions showing up though, but that's maybe for later.
Yeah, and if you guys have any like questions throughout because what we're gonna be talking about it or whatever, but if you have any questions, just pop them in the question box and we can answer them. Just because you know, you might have a question and we can answer it for you.
Yeah.
So I am going to jump here. So I'm going to share my screen just so that people understand. So the slide deck, we had a technical issue on the slide deck. So let me see if I can share.
Peter is from Hong Kong. We got Peter, and then we got Christian
Peter.
Salzburg.
Salzburg. Hong Kong staying up late. Appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
All right, so I guess the question is, am I sharing or no? Doesn't look like I am.
Oh yeah, let me change. I'm gonna make you the presenter real quick, and then that should. Hold on. Go to Johnson.
Yeah, we're not. Everybody, we're not intentionally going for amateur hour, but hey, this is what I've got today.
Yeah.
Well, as long as the content's good when the questions start flowing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We're good at PPC. We're not GoToWebinar consultants. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. All right, so let me. Oh, come on. Now we're gonna go back to the whole permissions thing again.
Alan is in Singapore, a Scotsman living in Singapore.
What up?
Oh man. That's what they call the blender.
Oh,
Okay.
There we go, Brian.
Yes, can we see it? Basically, here's the panelists.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Type a
All right.
2 if you guys can see the screen. We just want to make sure everybody can see it.
We will get this. Trust me, by round 4, we will have this all laid out side by side so that it's just easy, you know. But for now, we're going to go open discussion, open debate on each of these ad types. So for those of you who hadn't joined us on the PPC battle round 1, we debated sponsored brand ads as far as what some of the pros, the cons, the risks, the benefits of, and certainly where it's come. Some of the common mistakes that we ran into. Let's see here. What are some of the other things we talked about? Let's see. Conceptions and misconceptions. Performance of sponsored brand ads. Let's see here. Whether as far as targeting, predictions as far as Amazon rolling things out and how things will change, and then also we kind of closed up on the negative side. Now, we're going to do the same thing now regarding display ads. This is going to include both sponsored display ads that you can get through either Advertising Console or through Seller Central, and also through demand side platform, which most sellers would not have access to unless they're working with Amazon or they're working with an agency. And we'll go through and kind of explain what these are. So my name is Brian Johnson. I'm down in the bottom right-hand corner. I am the head of research and development at Canopy Management, a full-service agency for Amazon and beyond here out of Austin, Texas. And with me today, I've got George Marissa out of United Kingdom. George, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good, good. So George is off camera at the moment, but I will stop my camera a little bit later on. We'll add George in when he has the key speaking part where he needs to be the authority. George is with Clear Ads out of United Kingdom. George, you want to add anything else regarding you and your agency?
Yeah, sure. So we help companies advertise on Amazon through sponsored ads and Amazon demand side platform. We dabble in Google Ads every now and again too.
Fantastic. Yeah, and George has been in the advertising space for what, like 19 years or something, or no?
Since 2009, I've been in the paid
2009. Okay.
Dude, you've been doing ads for
Wasn't that
that
far
long?
off?
Dude.
Also with me today, I've got Destiny with Sean out of from part of the Better AMS team. Destiny, tell me again where you're located. You're out of
Bentonville, Arkansas.
Arkansas. Well, I'm glad I asked because
Walmart, USA, man.
out of Arkansas. Destiny, what would you like to add on as far as your company, your expertise?
Yeah, so I feel like we're all gonna be really similar in this, but unlike everyone who does a lot of really cool stuff, we just do Amazon advertising DSP only on platform. And I think I was in middle school in 2009, George.
Ouch.
Oh my God.
I'm like thinking about it, trying to do the math in my head. I'm so impressed by that.
Thanks.
That's what everybody on TikTok says. So we also brought in Aaron Michael Marino from
going on?
Amazing. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. What can we? What would you like to add for everybody who's listening in to know about you, know about your company?
Yeah, so my insight, my experience is going to be more towards Amazon sellers who are very bootstrap. They have like a team of like 1 to 10 and are more so focused on just maximizing profit, not so much like brand awareness like some of those big brands right now.
Fantastic. All right, Brent Zaradnik, you're out of we're in France right now.
Montpellier, southern France.
Southern France. All right, cool.
Yeah.
No, so you're then with AMZ Pathfinder. What else would you like to add on there?
The only thing that might set us apart from the other, people here would be we have a very heavy EU focus. Most of the team is from the EU, and we work with a lot of EU businesses. Probably about 40% of our clients are, EU based or our EU accounts in terms of just ad spend or revenue. So continue to accentuate that as we go forward. But yeah, we do the same stuff everyone else does. That's why we're all here.
Awesome. Oops, hold on here. Did I lose the, hold on here.
We can still see the screen, looks good.
It does, okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, it switched over here. So on me, hold on here, let me see if I can bring it back up again. All right, here we go. All right, welcome to Liz Adamson, of course. Liz, she's obviously been a rock star in this space as well. She was formerly with Agility. Now she is with Buy Box Experts. Liz, you want to talk about your history and the transition?
Yeah. So I founded Agility in, 5 years ago, about 2015. And then just recently, in the last few weeks, we were acquired by Buy Box Experts. And so kind of same set of services. We provide full service account management, and my specialty is advertising. We've been doing DSP for a long time. I've been working with Amazon sellers since Destiny was in high school, so it's about 2011. We're going to go off of that junior high comment.
No.
Age myself there, just, no judgment.
Right on. And of course, partner in crime here, Sean Smith out of AMZ PPC Accelerator. Sean, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. I'm good. I made sure to wear my athletic gear for this boxing match. So yeah. And in terms of PPC, I guess like my experience with PPC these days is just around like the technical side, like a lot of like scalable methods for larger accounts, and just like building like innovative creative solutions to scale the management of larger Amazon accounts.
Fantastic. So for those of you who are not, thank you everybody for being here. For those of you who are not familiar with us, that's kind of a quick introduction on it. The reason that I wanted the seven of us to get together here is because I definitely respect each and everybody here on the call based off of their experience, their level of expertise in the Amazon advertising space. And so I wanted to make sure that they were on this panel here so that we could have this debate, this PPC battle of the different ad types. And of course, last time that we, round one, was on the sponsored brand ads, and now today we're going to be talking about display ads, including sponsored display ads on Seller Central and Advertising Console, as well as demand side platform, or also known as DSP. Should we jump in?
Yeah, which one's first?
Do it.
Let me try to stop sharing so that we can actually see everybody again. So got cameras back?
Yeah, got cameras back.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. So George, be on the ready here. I'm going to let you share your screen. Actually, we've only got 5 cameras up. Am I not sharing mine anymore?
Yeah.
Or just maybe it's just not showing.
Oh, there's George.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's what I was going for.
Hey,
Cool.
George.
Fantastic. All right, so George. All right, so let me go ahead and jump in here, and let's talk about the first topic here when it comes to the same kind of format that we went through with round one. I'm going to kind of fire around to each of you, and I'm going to throw out some of your conceptions and misconceptions. You are more than welcome, depending on your expertise and your experience or your opinion, frankly, as far as sponsored display ads or DSP. I want you to kind of highlight what you think needs to stand out. So that gives us some flexibility because each of us have our own level of expertise in each area. I'm going to pick on Liz right off the bat here and talk about primarily when it comes to display ads. You can certainly talk about either DSP or SBA or SDA, excuse me, conceptions and misconceptions that you commonly hear. So that's going to be the first topic here for everybody. Conceptions and misconceptions that we continually hear regarding display ads. Liz, you're on deck first.
Yeah. So I think one of the misconceptions floating around out there, and it's just based on what's happened historically, is that DSP is only for huge brands with large advertising budgets, and that certainly was the case when it was an AMG product only. Your minimum ad spend was $30,000 a month, and you really did have to have those larger budgets to start spending with Amazon managed services. As Amazon started expanding their advertising business, and they allowed agencies to use the self-serve platform, it really now kind of varies by agency what your minimum spend is going to be. And so it's no longer this, you have to have this huge budget. You still need to have a decent amount. We recommend at least $5,000 a month, and more if you can. But so that's something to keep in mind. Also, one misconception I just came across with another client. We were running DSP ads for them on, through Amazon DSP platform, and they got on the call with us the other day, and they said, "Hey, we just found another DSP provider who can run, can run side by side, and you can run the Amazon DSP, and we'll run DSP over here." And I said, "I'm like, no,
Nope.
stop. I'm like, what is it you're trying to do?" And they're like, "Well, we want to target all these websites." I said, "We can do that for you. Like, we can do anything. Amazon DSP platform can do anything any other DSP platform can do." And George, you might have some caveats there, because there's a lot I don't know about other DSP platforms. But we sat down with the DSP ad manager I have on staff who's been doing this for 10 years. He says, "Oh, absolutely. Don't go with this other DSP partner. Let's keep using Amazon's DSP platform. We can do everything they can do. Plus, we're using Amazon data to do it. We're using shopping data and browsing data and search histories and things like that. And we have access to all the same inventory that any other DSP platform has." And so that was something I just kind of shocked me that my clients thought that they were two totally different things, that Amazon DSP did something very different than other DSP platforms. And really, the biggest difference that I'm aware of is the fact that Amazon DSP simply uses Amazon data, whereas those other platforms don't have access to that.
Right.
Sure.
Very good. Very good. All right, Brent, conceptions, misconceptions of display ads.
Yeah, I'll continue on the DSP front because I feel like I know a bit more about that at this point than sponsored display, which is quite honestly handled by a lot of the team. And I have been polling them throughout the day to try to learn a bit more about what they're doing, but it still makes up a pretty small percentage of our spend for most clients in US and EU. But with DSP, I think maybe one like counterpoint to what Liz is saying is the clients that we do work with. Part of the difficulty with using DSP is we have to have some pretty strict criteria in place before we consider it a good fit for them. We've learned through trial and error and through some campaigns that haven't gone super well in terms of ROAS, that the best way is to have like a minimum number of sessions, make sure that they have a product that's at a good price point, that we can target the right audiences and build the right kind of line items against it. I think that it's not so easy. Like DSP, in my experience, is like fairly difficult. You know, it's not scary, but it's like fairly difficult to get right for some products. And as we do more of it, we start to get a sense of you know, what things maybe to stay away from, what products not to try. But that just comes with experience. And as it stands, as far as I'm aware, there's no like course that you can buy, like you know, Brian, like Sponsored Products Academy or something like that, where you can you know, learn about DSP from like a source like that. I know, George, you and I talked about this the other day on the call we had, but there is some up in the learning console now that gives you a basic preliminary information on DSP. But yet again, I mean, how much is that compared to actual on the ground, you know, rubber meets the road experience? So yeah, I would say it's a bit intimidating at this point.
Okay. All right. Who else wants to volunteer? I probably won't go through absolutely everybody, but if you want to, we want to step up next and talk about conceptions, misconceptions of display ads. What do people need to know?
Yeah, I could chime in. I'll go ahead.
No, and make sure that when you're speaking too, I mean, just so that everybody, in case anybody's just listening on audio, you know, if you mention your name periodically, just so people get used to your voice.
Yeah, what's going on? This is Aaron. So as far as the conceptions, I would say at least like with my clients or potential clients that I'm talking to, they have this conception that sponsored display ads is DSP ads, and they kind of are unaware of the opportunity that they could be running right now without a minimum buy-in, and so that's kind of like the biggest conception that I see that I kind of want to blow up right now. As well as like a misconception that I see a lot is that when people do talk about DSP or any type of display ads, when they're first getting into it, they kind of judge it the same way that they judge like sponsored product ads or something like that, when it should be looked at in a completely different light, and the metrics should be completely different, or at least be looked at as like an overall cost, you know, like cost per acquisition, like considering all spend on PPC, not just display. Because if you just look at display, then yeah, it's going to be a lot more than some of your low funnel ads like sponsored products.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other victims? I mean, volunteers?
I'll go.
Go for it, George. Go for it, George.
Yeah, just to add, everyone gave me some awesome points, but one of the big kind of points about display advertising in general is you cannot, just like Aaron said, you cannot treat it like pay-per-click traffic. Pay-per-click traffic is by far and has always been one of the most powerful forms of advertising, for the sake that someone is looking for your product at that exact moment and you happen to be there. So, you know, to try and beat a conversion rate that you're going to get through that, it's going to be, it's a big challenge. However, with display advertising, it's more you're interrupting your audience. And as a display advertiser, our job is to make sure that when we interrupt them with an ad, that the offering is so compelling and at that right moment in time that they actually go forward and purchase. So one way I always look at it is, if your products don't work within sponsored ads like PPC, it's going to be very difficult for it to work with the display ads, unless you need to educate your audience, and they don't really know what to search to find your product. So that's been my kind of that's just my point.
Okay.
Oh, Brian, can I say something?
No, sorry, Sean. We got to move on, buddy. Next caller.
Destiny.
Yeah, man. Sean, what's up?
Ouch. I'm just joking.
Shots fired.
All right. So I don't know anything about DSP, just a heads up. This is Sean Smith. So I'm not going to say anything about that. I put NA on my little notes. But in regards to sponsored display, I would say like a big thing is just knowing the differences between audience targeting and product targeting. So like something we noticed was like when you look at audiences, it's on and off of Amazon, and you can't like, you don't know where the ads are going to be. I kind of like envision it as like this like 1% DSP where like they're giving you like this fraction amount of inventory of DSP. And it, for us, it hasn't performed well at all, like even at low bids. But what was really interesting about sponsored display is product targeting is really interesting because it's all on Amazon. And so when we tested both of them, we saw like these huge differences in performance. And so like we really like the product targeting, sponsored display product targeting. And it's got a ton, it's got like 10 ad placements, which is kind of a lot. And I compared those to like sponsored brands video and sponsored brands, and it's more than those. Well, like that, what Amazon says, like, you know how like when you scroll down and you see the creatives and stuff like that. So that's like what we're seeing on the product targeting side for sponsored display. But it's interesting, right? Like they lumped in two completely different types of advertising in this thing called sponsored display. So it can really confuse people, right? And so, you know, in sponsored products, it's pretty, I feel like it's pretty like straightforward, I guess you could say, compared to like, you know, audience targeting versus product targeting. One of them's on and off of Amazon, and then the other one's, you know, ASIN targeting on Amazon. So that's like what we're seeing in terms of the sponsored display side.
Got it.
Good point.
Got it. Okay, good.
Yeah. I can hop in to kind of follow up on some of that of what Sean said as well. This is Destiny. So for, you know, sponsored display, I kind of want to throw in the distinction between like advertising console and what we're seeing now in Seller Central. So a lot of us who have been managing on advertising console, which used to be AMS, have a ton of data on product targeting. And I think when people saw this new display, they've assumed that it's pretty incremental. Like Sean said, it's kind of a little bit of a rollout of DSP. They're dipping our toes into giving it to us as self-serve because we can spend more money on top of the funnel. But product targeting by far is one of the best display ad types you can run. Category targeting does pretty well. But product targeting, we can select specifically where our ad's showing. It's, you know, that 1-to-1 ratio. If we want our ads to show here, here, here. So I know like for one brand alone, we drove over $1 million in sales in December just from product targeting. So start there, maybe work your way up to category targeting. And then when you start diving into audiences, we ran every single type for like 5 to 10 products just to kind of do a quick split test. Searches, over 100% ACOS pretty much across the board. We have seen repurchasing is actually doing really decent. It's just low ad inventory, and you probably need to have a subscribe and save or consumable product. But that would probably be the third one I would test. And then you can start getting more top of the funnel with, you know, views and searches and potentially testing them. But don't assume that you're running them for a crazy low ACOS or high ROAS, because it's very much, you know, top of the funnel impression based.
Okay, very cool. All right. I'm going to move on unless anybody else has anybody else think one that they want to add. I'm going to move on to performance next. That's cool.
Well, one thing to add on to what Sean said, I think in sponsored display inside Seller Central, this is not from the advertising console / AMS perspective, just going from memory. But I think not only is it there's off Amazon and on Amazon, but one of them is CPM and the other one is a PPC cost type. So I mean that's like a minor little detail in the thing, but actually that distinction means everything. That's like tremendous difference. And it is strange that they do lump them in there and like barely even explain this. Like, yeah, don't worry about it. That's not a big deal.
Pay for impressions.
Yeah, spend your money. Just spend.
Just to add to that as well, Brent. Just something to also factor in is DSP comes into a separate family to pay-per-click. DSP comes into display ads in the programmatic world. So this is they're competing within the likes of Facebook, which is an Amazon, Facebook, which is its own DSP, Google's DoubleClick, which is a DSP, got Trading Desk, we got a whole range, and Amazon's basically shifted into that space with DSP, and going into that place, in that space, they've become a very powerful player just because of their first party rich data. You can't get data you got on Amazon anywhere else, and you can't access the Amazon DSP information from any other DSP. They completely shut it off. So we got that pure juicy gold and access to market with that. And then what the display, like I feel like it was touched on, and what the display ads is trying to do is it's trying to bring in the goodness from the DSP into the display ads. One of the most awesome things I love about the display ads, though, is like what you said, is the cost per click model, because you're paying per click. Whereas sometimes within DSP, you can get a ton of impressions, not that many clicks, and you've paid for those impressions. Whereas with the display ads, if that works, just the only issue is just a lack of control within display ads. But yeah, that's my take.
Cool. All right. Hey, Sean, when you had asked the audience questions, you're able to see that, because I don't see any kind of input or feedback. So I just want to make sure that we've got some engagement here. If there's questions coming up, we want to make sure we want to kind of save those for the end. I'm going to throw that out to everybody who's listening in. If you do have questions, go ahead and put them into, what is it, the question or the chat box, I'm guessing?
The question box. Just pop them in the question box. We got 2 questions so far we're going to answer, but yeah, just pop them in there, guys. Just,
Cool.
pop them in.
Yeah, I'm going to add, basically, we're going to go through basically this format, and then we're going to address your questions. So I want to make sure you stick around so you can get your questions answered. In the meantime here, let's go ahead and move forward. The one thing I was going to add on, probably as far as the conceptions and misconceptions, is just the accessibility of things like DSP. A lot of brands now have, last year you wouldn't have had necessarily, unless you had beta access to sponsored display ads, you may not have access to that, of course, if you're not brand registered through Seller Central or Advertising Console. But really, the accessibility when it comes to demand side platform is there are a number. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring on this group too is each of our agencies have access to, and which is a pretty limited number. So basically, it's a short list that Amazon has authorized for self-managed demand side platform. And so everybody I've got on today, each of our agencies have that kind of unique access, that relationship with Amazon that allows us to run the self-managed. And so through any one of our agencies, this is not designed to promote all of us, in our agencies. However, just to educate you is that things like demand side platform for your brand, you don't necessarily have to work with Amazon. You can work with one of our agencies, and it is a much better model. And of course, you've got the expertise of ourselves and our teams that come along with that. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that little nuance here.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Something I want to throw in there is we may not be as good as salespeople as what you do when you go through Amazon managed.
Well, I think that kind of like leads into like another misconception, I guess, is that is a common misconception that we hear is that Amazon can manage the ads better than somebody who lives and breathes it like we do. A lot of times they have different scope, different outcome.
I've taken on quite a few DSP accounts, and they've transferred over from Amazon. So, and last week I spoke to a chap who he's Amazon agent who's doing DSP for him, suggested he finds a self-service agency instead because he wanted to do more with it. So there's a whole lot of issues, I think, internally within Amazon trying to promote this, because I think sellers have the mentality of how can I maximize my profits, whereas Amazon's mentality on this is how can you engage with more of the top of the funnel advertising. So the great thing about this team, and how we all work, is we're seeking profit first. So we want to initially start with making that money. That's why we start with a low budget, get those ROASs going, get good numbers, get good ACOSs, and then we start to move into kind of the middle and the top of the funnel. So that's just another big difference between Amazon's managed service, from my experience, and Amazon DSP through certain self-service agencies.
Yeah, it is something where you know, we used to see that, we used to hear those quite a bit with sponsored brand ads also, where we also hear the same thing when it comes to demand side platform managed by Amazon. Of course, we also hear it with, you know, some of the fully automated AI systems. We hear that quite a bit in the past year too, is where we get clients that come over who want to work with us because they had a bad experience. Look, every company, every system, every platform in the world in advertising or not is going to have is going to have good and bad, right? And so not every product or not every brand or not every expert is going to have a perfect track record. It's just not reasonable to do that. However, when you've got, when we build teams like we have, we develop our expertise, we have certain expectations of developing and delivering ROI to each of our clients that Amazon simply just doesn't have if they're managing it themselves. And so we have to look for those solutions. We have to be innovative and test constantly, and we have to reinvest heavily into understanding the platform better and the delivery better and the results better. And you know, one of the things that many of you don't know, of course, is that we also mastermind outside of this kind of public panel debate. We also mastermind to say, hey, what's working now? What have you found? What, you know, how do we help each other? So that we're continually improving our skill set and our agency's skill set, so that we continue to increase that gap between the way what we can deliver versus what somebody like an Amazon managed services can deliver. Second thing, of course, is if we're focused more on profitability, user engagement, user retention, or I should say shopper engagement, customer retention, these kinds of things that we use the different ad types for. Amazon is mostly focused on, like, how quickly can I spend the ad dollars that we say that is your minimum quota for the month. They'll get you the visibility, but it doesn't, the ROI just doesn't carry along with it. So yeah, thank you each of you for bringing up your points here regarding the conceptions and misconceptions on display ads. Let's move forward now. Again, kind of for everybody who's listening in here, go ahead and post your questions here so we can get those answered. Let's talk about performance. How, from a display standpoint, both sponsored display and demand side platform, your experience on what kind of performance that you've seen, what to expect. For those of you who have, and for those who are listening who haven't tried either one, what should they expect when they're first starting out as far as performance of these different ad types?
Yeah, I'll start, Brian. You know, I think we kind of touched on this before a little bit, that it's a very different performance results that we're seeing between sponsored display and DSP. I like to call sponsored display kind of the watered down version of DSP, where I don't know, Sean, what was you, but said, you know, there's just 1%, you're getting like 1% of all the features and functionality that DSP actually gives you. And so it's, you know, it's kind of, I see the sponsored display ads as kind of like a big shotgun approach. You don't have a whole lot of control. You're just kind of throwing things everywhere and trying to see what sticks. Whereas DSP, we're able to really fine tune and take that more of a marksman approach, where we can really fine tune, you know, what we're targeting, what we're excluding, you know, what we're advertising, what creative we're using, and so on and so forth. And so it's, you know, if you've tried sponsored display and it's not working for you, it doesn't mean DSP won't either. In fact, DSP, there's dozens and dozens of levers we can pull to really target and fine tune what's going on with DSP. And then, you know, the other thing to keep in mind too, and someone mentioned this before, is DSP really allows you to leverage that full funnel approach. I'm a huge fan of full funnel, assuming you've got the budget for it. Not all brands are interested in spending money at the top of that sales funnel. But if brand awareness is your goal, you know, DSP is where you're going to want to be investing. But like any top of funnel approach, you have to have the right expectations that ROAS, you know, return on ad spend, is not going to be your metric you're measuring. You're going to have ROAS in the toilet, but that's not what you're looking for. If you're going for that full funnel approach, you need to be going for, you know, so if you're marketing top of funnel, you're doing an in-market or lifestyle audience, meaning you're targeting certain demographics or shoppers who browse certain product categories on Amazon. So if you're targeting those broad audiences, If you don't have that set up with a retargeting campaign, you're not going to ever see that return. And that's where that return starts to come, is you bring in the shoppers into that top of the funnel. They've never seen you before. They were browsing in your category, but they haven't clicked on your product and don't really know who you are. You start serving them ads. They click your product. They visit your page. In comes your retargeting campaign. Now your retargeting campaign is, shooting ads at anyone who visited your page. And so DSP, it is incredibly complex, and like George was saying, we start from that bottom up. We start by making sure that you've got good sponsored product campaigns, that you've got good sponsored brand campaigns, you've got a solid product page, you've got enough traffic. Then we'll move you into DSP. We'll start with that very bottom of the funnel retargeting. Then we'll start retargeting competitors. Then we'll start moving further up the funnel and start targeting people who have browsed in your category. And so we take that very incremental approach, and you're going to see different performance metrics at each of those levels. And so whereas, retargeting campaigns and things like sponsored products and sponsored brands, you're looking for ACOS and ROAS and getting that return. As you start moving up that funnel, you're looking for detailed page views and click-through rates and video completion rates, and how much are they actually engaging with the brand. So that's something to keep in mind when you're working with DSP, is it's not always about ROAS. Depending on what that campaign is targeting, it might not be about ROAS. It might be you're using that campaign to funnel it somewhere else where the sale comes in later. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We definitely see that from our side. Is each client that we work with, they have different expectations, and it can be a per product or per brand basis as far as what their expectations are, especially things as far as levels of performance and what the outcome is they're expecting on a product launch versus a mature product, for instance.
Hop on in, Brian. Hop on
What's
in.
that?
Hop on in. I hopped out. Hop on in.
So, see, now you're gonna take me off so that I can.
You're talking. Hop on in.
Man, guys. All right, Sean.
There you are.
Yeah. So in other words, it really we see this a lot with, as far as like private label sellers that are focused on usually a fairly narrow outcome based off of the limitations that they have as far as selling their product on Amazon and what has historically been available for advertising on Amazon. Usually it's more of a focus of, first and foremost, okay, how much can I profit, and then from my ads, and so I'm not bleeding money. But then also it is I'm launching a product, and so I want to get a bunch of visibility. And then third might be like, oh, let's see if it can help my organic keyword ranking. Those are only three aspects out of a larger brand with multiple brands, multiple product lines, multiple intents, multiple audiences, different personas that they're targeting, different customer profiles they're targeting. All of these things have such a much greater detail of targeting, and as Liz aptly pointed out, fine tuning at different levels of the funnel based on those kind of different display ads, that it really, it's full on just like next level as far as being able to reach an audience and really grow your brand beyond Amazon, even on Amazon, of course, but also beyond Amazon. So yeah, well said, Liz. All right, next on performance, who wants to jump in?
I'll speak briefly about DSP, then switch over to sponsored display. So we're running DSP for just a handful of brands at the moment, but we're mostly targeting on that lower funnel because that's where a lot of our clients are interested in initially. Once we have proven that out for a few months, I'm confident we can move up to some different tiers and be a little bit closer to what Liz is talking about and kind of the level that she's playing at with the brands that she's engaging with. Retargeting competitors, obvious next step. Affiliated audiences, using some of those little reports inside of brand analytics like we talked about to find new targets, for instance. But typically we see about 4.5 to 5 times like ROAS for these retargeting campaigns. That's what we've seen this month and last month, which is a pretty good return. And if clients are having the same mindset about ACOS, because they always want to translate it into ACOS because that's like what they understand on Amazon, which is understandable.
Right.
I would argue probably need to look at it a little bit differently because it is a different animal. But so far, people have been pretty satisfied with that. I would say for sponsored display, switching over to that, we've seen much better performance from product targeting as like a type in general. So in category for that matter, but targeting individual pages, which is a little bit different than the ASIN targeting that you find in sponsored products. And then category targeting also works pretty well, which is a bit more of a shotgun. I mean, there are some issues with that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can't target or you can't advertise products that have less than 15 reviews or something like that. And occasionally, if your bid is too low, you won't get any impressions. There's a couple like strange quirks with it, but in general, I would say that I'm more bullish on DSP for a client if the product fit is right and the account is kind of ready. The way I explain it to clients, and maybe I'm just hungry when I say this, but like think of your account as like a cake, and DSP is like the icing on top of the cake. You wouldn't put the icing on top of the cake until the cake is done. You know, the cake is baked, it's completed. The only time you put icing is when it's finished. So think of it like that sweet icing on top. What did you say, George? Something about the sweet juice, the sweet cold juice, the sweet icing. To make a strange analogy, but basically, I would say overall sponsored display performance, takes up a smaller percentage of ad spend and revenue, and ACoS is hit or miss. We don't have, I think, the depth of experience at sponsored display that Destiny you do, especially coming from the AMS heavy background. So, you got some cool tricks there for sure.
Yeah, that was a great call out as well, and just kind of how incremental sponsored display is. We typically see in like a healthy account, like 10 to 15% of advertising sales coming from sponsored display, which isn't a ton when you look at the whole picture and know the potentiality of DSP. But it's something that people kind of forget about because there are so many different targeting types and the expectations that they get confused, run something that is CPM based, on views or searches. And then they absolutely stress out when it's a 200% ACOS. So
Right.
Completely agree. That's a great call out. And another thing that I love that you mentioned is, product targeting, we can be much more incremental because we can select specific ASINs to run. But in general, I think for anyone listening, the biggest call out from listening to all these experts, especially in DSP, is know your expectations as a brand. Get those straight before you start looking into everything cool and shiny with DSP and sponsored displays. If you don't know your expectations and you just want short-term growth, in cash, probably don't look at these because these are really getting into more top of the funnel brand awareness and really driving that long-term growth that, sponsored display and everything is a lot less purchase intent and brand awareness.
Yeah, and I would say to kind of add to that too is that we probably take it for granted some of the things that we just assume everybody knows. But ultimately, what you kind of playing into what you're saying there, Destiny, is as far as like knowing forget the exact terminology you use, your intent, know your outcome that you're going for as a brand. It's not uncommon for us to talk with or even consult with a brand that doesn't know what the capabilities are, therefore they haven't set their own expectations. And so don't get bogged down by saying, oh, I need to have a plan before I even talk to somebody like any one of these panelists here. We can definitely consult and help you understand what the capabilities are, because these capabilities are constantly changing, constantly evolving. Amazon is continually adding on. There's new competition outside of Amazon that's going to put more pressure onto Amazon to continue to innovate and to release new tools. And we literally see where on pretty much in the past year, pretty much on an average about a weekly basis, Amazon is rolling something new out when it comes to the advertising platforms, and we're aware of it. And we assume everybody is aware of it, but obviously we're the ones who are paying attention so closely to it. So don't be afraid to simply just reach out to us and ask us, hey, you know what? I don't know if I qualify. I don't know if I even know what the capabilities are for me to take advantage of. But what we're kind of telling you is, I know I kind of concurring with your earlier statement too, Destiny, is 10 to 15% increase in sales through some of these additional ad types is not uncommon. Sometimes we blow that out of the water and just do a lot bigger numbers than that. But it is kind of our average that we're in the 10 to 15% additional sales. For some of you with your brands and your products, that can make all the difference in the world this year.
Mm-hmm. And a question for everyone else, when you do audits of accounts, how often do you see sponsored display or even sponsored brands, to kind of echo back to that, our previous thing, used in any kind of systematic, large, like scaled way? Because I would say like almost never.
I was going to say probably less than 5% of the time.
Yeah.
What cracks me up is with sponsored display, we have the data in place if they've ever ran an auto campaign. So it's something that we look at is, we pull search term reports. We like, you have 300 ASINs you've already converted on, but you're not using them in sponsored display product targeting. And like,
Right.
Liz said, it's like going from the shotgun approach to a sniper. You have the data, utilize it. It's just scalability, because Brian said, brand managers have so much that they're doing that focusing on the little things in Amazon advertising sometimes don't make sense.
Yeah, the lack of using all the ad types available is the number one observation that I have when I'm consulting new clients of where you're leaving the most amount of money on the table is you're simply just not up to speed of what is available to you now. But that's our job, is to educate you, and more than educate, obviously we have agencies, and so obviously we're in the business of just handling it for you. So, yeah. Cool.
Just to add as well as these kind of, there's high criteria for DSP, and personally I'm saying more no's than yeses when companies come and ask for it, just for the sake of, I don't want to waste their money when I see so many gaps in sponsored ads that could be filled first. But with DSP, the power is just insane. You have the ability to schedule what time of day your ads serve, what states or what parts of the country your ads serve. You can retarget your competitors' audience within and outside of Amazon. There's one example where one ASIN we were targeting, it just started soaring in traffic and sales, and we couldn't understand it for a few days. And then we realized that competitor's ASIN got some coverage on TV, and we were kind of really taking advantage of all of that traffic through DSP. And the crazy thing is that competitor never knew we did a thing. They had no idea. They just probably thought all of our ads were everywhere, but it was actually following their audience around. And like the audience builder tool gives us that. It gives us the power to build our own audience. And this is what makes DSP like a big game changer. So like before June last year, this wasn't even around.
Right.
When they introduced it, we've been playing a lot with it. And I think as all of us here, we're at the moment, we're speaking with the guys who made the tool, and they're looking for our point of views on how to improve it. And we've all been kind of talking about ideas of how to kind of get that going and get more out of it. But simply put, just the power you have of display advertising, especially on Amazon's DSP, I don't even think Amazon know really the power that they've got there with the data they have. And the space that I'm personally watching is when they improve the type of advertising and targeting that we can do outside of Amazon, because if you can nail that, the potential to scale is another level. They could be spending thousands upon thousands a day easily if that's done right. And I'm sure quite a lot of you sellers know that outside of Amazon, traffic is key. So if you can nail that, it's going to put your products at an untouchable ranking spot on Amazon. So that's kind of what we're working towards at the moment within DSP. Cross-selling as well. Cross-selling's been awesome. So we just had some stats in for one of our clients a few weeks ago, and we figured out that such a small percentage of people actually repurchase of their products through internal Amazon data. And so what we've done is we've now created quite a few cross-selling campaigns to really push this to get people who are already aware of the brand purchasing something else. So that's kind of my take on DSP. I love it. I mean, this is George, by the way. I should have introduced who's speaking. Just
well, we actually have your video on now, so I mean that does help too.
Oh yeah, that's
George, you're the only guy with an accent from the UK. I think we can figure it out.
All right. I know we're taking kind of extra time on this, and so I want to keep things moving pretty fast here. I don't know, Aaron, Sean, if you want to add anything additional you want to add regarding performance of display ads.
Yeah.
I would go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, I'll make it quick, but just from like a tactical perspective, Now I can't comment on. Oh, let me share my webcam.
That's
There
right.
we go. Hey, hello people. Hey. So like real quick from a tactical standpoint, I would say I don't know anything about DSP, just a heads up. So I'm not going to comment on that. Put that over there. But in terms of sponsored display, we mainly use ASIN targeting. And one thing we do is, since display is different than search, when we do bid calculations, we always use historical cost per click data, but we like decrease the starting bid because it's a display ad. And the nature of a display ad is a lower conversion rate from what we've seen. And that's just like an internet targeting advertising rule. So, you know, when we started like building systems around it, you know, we just asked ourselves, it's probably best to start with like a lower multiple on the historical CPC when you calculate the starting bid versus search, just to ensure that it's profitable out the gate. So that being said, with sponsored display ASIN targeting, we've seen really good results for us, and it's not just on our own products, it's on competitor products as well. So like I like it a lot. So SD ASIN targeting is doing really well in terms of efficiency. I guess efficiency meaning low ACOS.
Cool.
I would say what geeks me out the most about display, specifically DSP, is Liz and how everyone was saying about how it's like full funnel, right? But I think that like where a lot of people would drop the ball at is kind of taking like a very cookie cutter approach and being like, okay, just running one DSP prospecting campaign and one DSP remarketing campaign and just letting that run, right? Like we should take the same mindset that we do for sponsored products, like really segmentation, right? And take that to DSP. So for example, Liz, like you were saying, like remarketing the page views, right? And then remarketing to add the shopping carts, and then remarketing to purchase products before. So really segmenting it down to really fine tune each of that funnel to really create that full effect. I think that's like the biggest opportunity to then look at overall, like how are you performing overall on your Amazon advertising.
Very cool.
Something super small to throw in is I kind of get this question a lot, is still the distinction between Advertising Console and Seller Central. For the most part, everything was rolled out to Seller Central, finally, hallelujah. But if you have access to both, we're still recommending running display on Advertising Console or AMS because we have the ability to write copy. And we've seen higher click-through rates and conversion rates when you're able to write your competitive advantage in your product display ad.
So I'm sorry, so say that again. So you're saying you've got the ability to create additional copy?
Yeah, so traditionally PDAs, product display ads, you know, in AMS, you could write copy with your product display ads and they show up in this exact same spots right under the buy box. Advertising Consoles still maintain that under sponsored display product targeting. You can see if you log under either, it says creative customization. For Advertising Console, it says yes. For Seller Central, it says no.
Okay, gotcha. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. This is more of a kind of a pass-fail. Quick question for if you're speaking to somebody who's, I'm going to go around the room here. So for display advertising, I'm going to have basically a two-part on this one. One referring to display advertising, the other one related to DSP, demand-side platform. If we're speaking to the novice or the young brand who might have limited sales currently, question to you is display, display advertising through Seller Central and Advertising Console appropriate for them at this time? And the second question is, at what point would you have them advance to also use demand side platform DSP?
Oh, was this
Open.
for me specifically?
That's back to you. Yeah, we'll start with you,
Okay.
Destiny.
Oh, okay, sorry. So sponsored display, again, start extremely micro, keep your targeting really small, based of everything we're saying. Typically it sounds like, product targeting and then category targeting, and then work your way on the top of the funnel just for, self-serve display. I'm not going to speak too much to DSP, but in general, like kind of everyone's mentioned, max out what you're doing on the self-serve side, because we do have, pretty distinct indicators that we can control that performance. And then move on to DSP with the experts when you're ready to spin that and you're looking for more long-term goals.
Okay, thank you.
One of the criteria that I put out with DSP, and it's actually proven well, and it's worked with kind of companies we worked with, is before considering to do Amazon DSP, you need to do at least 100,000 a month in sales across one marketplace. Also suggest having at least 3 or 4 key products. So if that, if you're doing just over 100,000 and those sales are spread out across a wide range of different ASINs, it's going to be difficult to get it to work. But if you get at least 3,000 page views for free parent ASINs, then there's good scope it will work. And also being something Amazon like to call retail ready, so ensuring that you've got a decent amount of reviews, I would say 50 to 100 at least, on your product, good images, and good descriptions, and a really like strong unique selling points. That's kind of the criteria that we look for if anyone does request to go on to Amazon DSP.
Awesome, thanks, George. All right. Liz, do you want to chime in on this one for the novice brand?
Yeah, we're talking specifically sponsored display, right? It can be used carefully. If your goal, and it kind of depends what your goals are too. If you're a new brand and profit is not the major concern right now, but you're willing to invest in brand awareness, then using some of the category targeting just to get yourself out there, and it's not profitable. It's not you're not going to see that ACOS and that bottom line metric. But again, I always go back to, it depends on your goals. If your goal is to just get your brand name out there as far and wide as you can and start creating awareness, then we're pulling all triggers everywhere we can to make sure that people see you right. in a still a targeted fashion. We're targeting people, and now I'm switching to DSP in my head just because that's where we live all the time. But then we're targeting in market and lifestyle and some very specific demographics, and video or Prime Video targeting just came available. We're excited to play with that, but we're working with a brand who's about to launch a pretty large product line, and they're up against some heavy competitors, and we're going to use DSP advertising, so they won't have any historical traffic to their page for us to retarget. That's not there. Retargeting is not an option for them. They're brand new, but they want to go after very specific competitors. So we're going to be ASIN targeting their competitors like crazy, trying to get people to switch brands and introduce them to this brand new brand that's going to launch.
Very cool.
As a novice brand, I'll caveat that as a novice brand, if you've got that tighter budget and profit margins are a concern, display is not the way to go. You've got to build that foundation first, kind of like what everyone else is saying. But again, it all goes back to those goals. Do you have the budget to go crazy on brand awareness, or are you going to be more conservative and build it little by little by little in a more profitable manner?
Awesome. All right, who else has got an opinion on the novice brand, whether or not they should be using demand side or display ads? Oh, display ads, yeah.
I could chime in on just the sponsored display ads. When running those through ASIN targeting, like Sean said, they're super profitable. In fact, for our clients, we've noticed like a 53% improvement in ACOS for sponsored display ASIN targeting than like our sponsored products or sponsored brand campaigns. So like it's very incremental. Right, like 10 to 15%, but again, it's like a super easy and profitable way to just steal sales from people that just aren't taking advantage of it, at least right now.
Yes, I definitely going to concur with you on that one, Aaron. So that is actually a very common statement that I find that I make in talking with new clients is it's like, look, and my team doesn't like me to always use the term stealing market share, but the fact is if somebody's just going to open the door and just leave it wide open for you to walk in, go for it. And that's something we see a lot. Now, unfortunately, the biggest problem with that is that most of the brands that we speak to that come with us that want to work with our agency is they think that they've got it all figured out, and then when you point out, it's like, look, you've got the front door and the back door wide open right now, and your competitors are just camping out in your kitchen. And so you got to do something about there. There's brand defense, there's brand offense, there is, basically the reason you're losing your sales is because you're losing your market share to competitors who are doing just a little bit more than you are. get it corrected.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would kind of add in for the novice sellers is just recognize that if your sales are trending down, it's probably because somebody else is walking away with your customers.
Yeah.
All right. Any other opinions on that one before we move on?
Yeah, just to really quickly add on, something we've done which has worked really well is, especially in the consumable space, it's a bit cheeky, but we target people who've just purchased either their competitors' products, but maybe 30 days ago or 60 days ago, however much that supplement or that consumable item is just before it runs out. So we're reintroducing a new brand to someone who is used to taking vitamin C supplements, for example. So we introduced that new brand, and we effectively just kind of introduced them to a new brand, stealing sales and helping customers engage with a new product. And again, this is just a great way to find people who are interested in the brand, being creative. So that's something we've seen work really well.
Yeah, actually one of the tactics that we'll actually use too is if we have something, a product that's an accessory to a competitor, we've got no problems as far as running retargeting ads for those shoppers that maybe purchased or visited a competitor main product with the accessory product, just to kind of like get that engagement with the shopper over to our brand as well.
Yeah, and to be clear, we can target people who have purchased someone else's product.
Right.
Amazon let you do this. Okay, this isn't, like Facebook, there's guesswork. They get third-party information, but this is raw Amazon info. So if someone has purchased product A, we can engage that audience to show them our brand. So I know quite a few people's brains are spinning right now with so many different ideas of how you can use that information, but that is what's available within Amazon DSP.
Yeah, I know it's a common conversation that we have with the client that we're basically saying, we really recommend that you start doing like demand side platform or display ads in general, and making those kind of statements and having the response being pretty commonly, it's like, wait, you can do what?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I mean, that's the beauty of Amazon DSP. That's why when, people come to me and say, oh, I'm already using another DSP platform, like, you don't have any Amazon data on that platform. Like, if you are selling on Amazon, if your competitors are selling on Amazon, if you want to engage the Amazon audience in any way, shape, or form, which I have no idea what % of product searches are compared to Google right now. It fluctuates every year, but using that Amazon data on Amazon DSP just gets you you can just target so much more accurately and be so much more specific than the other DSP platforms. And, on the flip side, and Amazon has access to all the same ad inventory. I can place it on any website you can place any other DSP ad on. So Amazon DSP is it's just like this gold standard of DSP where you are getting so much shopper data you can work with, and then you can put it out on the web, almost wherever you want to put that ad.
Cool. All right, so we're running about an hour right now, so we're running a little bit long here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this succinct and get the items forward on display ads here on these last 3 items: targeting, predictions, and negatives, and then of course questions at the end for those who stick around. And what I want to do is try to focus in, have each of you just focus in on one item. Probably won't do everybody, but we'll pick 3 or 4 of these, one item. Next one is going to be regarding targeting, specifically kind of what is the hottest or the most overlooked kind of ninja tactic, if you want, but the hottest or most overlooked targeting option or tactic that you would suggest for display ads. Everybody's like, I don't want to talk about that. That's for my own clients.
Well, I'll answer something that's kind of a combination of the last one, because I think for novice brands, DSP is not a good idea for a lot of the criteria reasons that George mentioned, which you're probably unlikely to meet. But one tactic I think is necessary, even for novice brands or newer brands, is defensive sponsored display campaigns. So targeting your own products, cross-selling on your own, and the idea there is to use those ad slots so they're not being used by competitors. And that is probably like the first and most basic iteration that you should approach and try, because then you don't need to necessarily have a better offer than your competitors, which is what you're trying to do with ASIN targeting usually, right? Some kind of price review, product USP advantage. With defense, it's a bit of a different mindset, and yet again, it's to block rather than to be aggressive. So I think that's probably the first iteration you should start with, and is really overlooked. We almost never see that in accounts when we do an audit or talk to clients about it. It's not something people know about.
Right. Yeah,
First
that
offense,
is definitely, I would
defense.
certainly concur with that, is the, I kind of use a leaky bucket, a bucket that's filled with water, which is your customer base, and yet it's filled with bullet holes, right? So at some point you've got your customers are basically just draining right out of your bucket and into competitors, and the only way you're going to plug those holes is through the defense ads. And I know I need to work on a better analogy, but I need to switch maybe over the cake analogy somehow.
Dude, cake's delicious.
That's
So,
a
yeah.
very Texas analogy there you got going,
Yeah,
Brian.
And people buy on emotions, and so like cake is more delicious than
As
buckets.
opposed to violence
So,
with bullet holes and
might be good for
Bullet
sales,
holes.
for closing
yeah, I'm
deals.
in Texas,
Test,
man.
test the
Guns.
call conversion rate.
Hole in a boat. Survival.
What about? There you go. You're sinking.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can
Right.
I go next? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so targeting, the hottest targeting option. I'm gonna sound like I'm repeating myself here, but the most powerful targeting option, not in Amazon, not in like in the digital space right now, I believe is tucked away, hidden in Amazon DSP, and it is the audience builder. I'll give you an example. If you sell coffee beans, you can target someone who's just bought a coffee machine. If you sell tennis balls, you can target people who've just purchased tennis rackets. Yeah, just the power of that is endless, and you can take that outside of Amazon. Remarketing when it came out was the biggest thing ever. I remember just how everyone was just going crazy about it. Now with this audience builder, you can remarket off someone else's product and someone else's customer list. This is borderline, I think, illegal. This is like, how would they let you do this? But that is like that's the hottest thing right now, I think, in this space of the digital world, and it's just no one is even talking about it. I can't believe it. But yeah, that's my take.
Well, you just did, George. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, secret's out now, man.
Yeah.
Gets out of the bag.
All right. Next on there. So targeting, hottest or most overlooked tactic that you would recommend? Destiny, you want to throw anything in there?
I think you kind of lightly touched on it with DSP, but for sponsored display, showing your ad on products that can be purchased in a line with yours, not necessarily a competitor. So if I'm selling metal straws, I can target metal cups and get someone to potentially purchase my product. The good news is they're probably not going to click on it if they don't have any interest at all. So if you have a great product, great listing, if you're selling socks, advertise on all the shoes. Just similar type of products do really well.
Cool. Very good.
Is it cool if I chime in, Brian? Is that cool, man?
No, too late, man.
Chopping me out, man. No, I'm just joking. So like I would say, we kind of touched on it, but a lot of people really aren't using the sponsored display product targeting, and like you can't use it in bulk files. Most software platforms probably don't have it in there, and a lot of people like plug their things into software and let it go. So it's good to go into Campaign Manager itself and make these campaigns. And so I think that people miss some of that when they put their PPC on autopilot. They miss what's being rolled out in the Campaign Manager. And sponsored display product targeting is new. For not sponsored display itself, it's been around for a while, but product targeting is in Seller Central. So I think that's one targeting thing that I think is overlooked, even though we've all talked about it. A lot of people aren't doing it. And and for the reasons the aforementioned reasons.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that, Sean, too. Also, I'm kind of adding on to the statement because I don't want to. I mean, I hear this across like podcasts and different shows and that kind of stuff too. Is it's not like we are coming down and really dogging things as far as like AI software platforms or automation. We all use a certain form of automation. Certainly, we use a combination of automation for product research or for deep analytics or especially for competitive analysis. So there's definitely a place and a time for it. I think where we see a lot of the mistakes being made when it comes to the platform is exactly what Sean is just pointing out. Is it's too easy to go into a platform and just assume it's just going to handle everything, let alone everything that's coming out new on a weekly basis. And the fact is, the system is only as good as what's been developed, and behind that, what level of strategy and day-to-day implementation expertise that somebody has that is running the whole platform and designing the whole platform. And so you get, like our teams, we're not simply just, we're not saying that, don't use, automation platforms. We simply just say, don't blindly rely on somebody else to be on top of the latest changes when their first focus is a software provider versus a service delivery, because there is a definite difference. Yeah.
Yep.
That was my soapbox on that.
Yeah, it's good soapbox. Good soapbox.
All right, anybody else want to add in as far as targeting?
Box.
Yeah, I would say Sean shared this with me, and it's absolutely genius. So with sponsored display ASIN targeting, what we're seeing works really well, contrary to all the other placements, is actually like when you look at the search term report and you find like other ASINs that are within there, usually you only pick out the ASINs that generated a sale and put those within manual campaigns. But with sponsored display, because not a lot of people are using it, we're actually testing out putting the non-converting ASINs within sponsored display with a super low bid, and we're getting a lot of profitable sales that way. So that's just like a completely different way to use the search term report that not a lot of people are using specifically for sponsored display.
Yeah, it's kind of, I know, Sean, you and I have both promoted kind of the gold panning method of just like, just put a really cheap bid behind something and then eventually it's going to trigger, right?
Don't worry, Brian. I always reference you in my videos when I use gold panning. You're the OG on the gold panning, man.
You know what? Well, no, it doesn't matter where the source of it was. I'm saying is that because like my own team has taken that idea and adapted it further also, beyond. I'm like going, wait a minute, that's not what I taught. They're like going, yeah, we know.
You're letting Amazon.
I love that, because anyway, that's part of the innovation, right? Exactly. It's like good. It's not just on one or two people, but kind of what you're sharing there, of course, Aaron, is that you could take that same kind of concept and apply it to other ad types, and ASIN targeting, for instance, and just say, look, it didn't work out for you the first time you were intentionally trying to target them, but you can certainly go after, if you price it low enough, eventually it's going to be profitable for you, right? It may not sell as much as some of your other ones. Second piece on that, of course, is especially during things like COVID and stuff, when you've got some top competitor brands who have these very popular products that you could never compete with normally, you would basically go in and you could kind of pick up some targeting on top, like 800-pound gorilla type of competitor products that you normally wouldn't go after. But when they're out of stock, guess what? You've got the shiny object in the room, and so that basically is a great. Sorry, George, it's like you weren't supposed to share that.
No, that's not it. No, it's just a really good point.
Yeah, that's kind of the advantage of joining in on calls like this from an audience standpoint. Is like, oh, I don't think they meant to say that.
No, but just another good point on that is because what we've found sometimes is there's a fantastic product, it sells really well, and they run out of stock. And then if your ad is there, you start sucking those sales, especially when ASINs organically rank well on Google. That traffic does not stop. So this is a little golden thing you can try it away with your display ads. Go on Google, search for your product, find the top ranking Amazon search results. A lot of them are out of stock because they're ranked really well on Google. Re-advertise to them. That is a fantastic way. Sorry, I just thought it was an awesome point you made. I just wanted to add that to it.
Something.
Agreed.
with these points, like something we haven't even covered is like running coupons with your sponsored display. So if we have a coupon going on our listing, we create very specific sponsored display campaigns just for that coupon, because we're running off the assumption click-through rate's going to be higher, conversion's going to be higher, so we can increase our bid. Now you could do it with your legacy campaigns as well, increase your budgets, but I just don't like, you know, screwing up my bids just because my click-through and conversion's higher for a certain point of time. So that's a great way to drive additional traffic because it shows up as a coupon with a little cute cutout and the orange tag that says coupon.
Yeah. See, I knew this call was going to be a lot way longer because there's a lot more in depth that we could actually go into here. We're kind of picking the Pareto. You know, what's the 20% that is the most important, right?
Yeah.
So,
That works with DSP too, doesn't it? The coupons angle.
Yeah.
all right, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Just a reminder for those of you who are on board and listening in, you know, let us know, you know, let Sean know, I guess, in the chat. Give us a one. Are you getting value out of this? Are you learning some things? And then also, of course, if you've got questions, make sure you're putting those questions in now so that we can circle back around to those once we wrap up here shortly. Next, I'm going to switch over and talk about predictions. I think this is going to be a hot topic. I know I've been looking forward to this one. Talking about what you think is going to happen, what's going to come out of Amazon, how you think it's going to change advertising and selling on and off Amazon because of the amount of development investment that Amazon has put into display advertising over the past year. And where do each of you see it going as far as your predictions regarding display ads?
Yeah, I'll jump in. My number one prediction is Amazon's going to come up with more ways to get brands to spend money. That's the bottom line. It's such a huge revenue stream for them. I mean, it's, you know, they focus on this because they realize just how profitable it is for Amazon. And so that's one thing to watch is Amazon's rolling out more and more features over time. And like everything that Amazon launches, it almost always launches half-baked. You know, and we always, you know, we like to test everything that comes out, but test it on a very small scale. You know, don't throw your entire advertising budget at it. Don't advertise your entire catalog. But you know, we are going to continue to see more and more development from Amazon. One of the things that I'm watching, and this is to, gosh, I think it was Brian's earlier point, and maybe Sean, that you know, if you are very reliant on software, you're not going to see some of these new things come out because they kind of, you know, you often only notice them as you're creating a campaign, and all of a sudden you're going, oh, look, there's a new feature here, you know, that I didn't see here before. Amazon's not really good at announcing the features all the time. So one of the predictions I do have around the display part is Amazon is going to be focusing on sponsored display. So as they start adding more features, like they slipped in the product targeting and the cost per click and a few other things, and they're going to keep slipping in more and more features into sponsored display. And so watch that very carefully. Make sure you're in the interface looking for things like that and not just relying on software to auto, because I know their software platforms will just auto create campaigns for you and you never even have to put a finger on it. Make sure you're watching sponsored display and watching those as those features get added. And again, just test them on a small scale to see how they work for you and your brand. They are interested in sponsored display because they know that DSP is out of reach for many brands. They just don't have the budget. They don't have the agency connection. They don't, lots of different reasons. So they're trying to bring DSP to sponsored display. And I think we're still really early stages on that. I don't think it will ever be as big and hefty as DSP, because I'm not kidding, you need like a manual this thick to figure out DSP. It's not for novices. It's not for people who have never worked in advertising. So it's not going to get to that level, but I think they're going to try to bring in like the top 10 features and just kind of the best of the best that can be used by people who are a little bit less experienced in advertising.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to hop in real quick because I'm going to have to run in 5 minutes for a brand call. But something I wanted to really build off of with what Liz said is they launched these new ad types really raw because they want us to test it and they want us to figure out what works best. And, we're just a big sandbox of let's see what kind of data works, and then they're going to get better over time. So that's kind of my soapbox is if you launch something and it doesn't work, don't just drop it and never try it again. It's going to get better. It doesn't do Amazon any good launching terrible ad types that are never going to work. So if you start something, start with really low bid, low budget, and just, scale your way up. And if it's not working, run it in the background and let it collect data because it's probably going to get better. This is more for the self-serve side from what I've seen, just because I'm not going to speak too much to DSP. But start small and then work your way up and let it collect data and assume it's going to get better.
Yeah, no, that's some good foundational, good practices there for sure. Cool. All right.
I
so-
hop off.
All right. Thank you, Destiny. Thank you for joining
Sorry,
us.
guys.
Bye,
See ya.
Destiny.
Bye, Destiny.
George, you're
I'll
gonna
just
chime
say,
in
yeah, happy to. So in terms of predictions, I see probably DSP coming into the hands of the everyday seller in about 2 years or so. There's rumors about that going around, but it's just about making it more user friendly. I don't know how they're going to achieve that. It's a mess right now. And also, I just see the integration of video is going to become more and more because of the fact that Amazon has such a kind of wide audience on Prime videos. I'm interested to see where Netflix is going to fit into this, and if that then becomes its own supply side platform. So supply side is the other side of
Right.
demand side, which DSP Amazon is both a DSP and SSP. So that's kind of the two predictions I see. Predictions I'd make about where this is going.
Cool. All right.
Those are great. Yeah, if I could chime in with obviously a pretty kind of evident prediction, but as someone mentioned earlier, the sponsored display is like the 1% of DSP. Maybe by the end of the year, it'll be like 10%, and we'll see all the targeting options start to slowly kind of make their way in there. And one thing that DSP does really well we haven't talked about is reporting. Reporting in DSP is pretty incredible in my opinion. You can get a lot of stuff out of there. But with sponsored display inside of Seller Central, soon to be advertising console when they migrate, the reporting is like basically non-existent. It's like, change the bids, hope for the best, essentially. The information we can get out of there is very minimal.
Right. No, I definitely agree. That should advance.
That's
Yeah,
sure.
it's awful right now. It's actually like probably one of the biggest negatives, which I guess is another one of our things in the presentation, I would say. So I'll put that in as my submission: reporting in sponsored display.
There you go.
The lack of it.
I was going to touch on a couple of things, of course, that we've been in conversation with Amazon recently, and that has to do with things like having technical solution, basically software solutions and data feeds for creative asset libraries, things like being able to tie into video assets, image assets, banners, that kind of stuff, and really having that available. Where we see that from a software development standpoint is the ability to create ads and deliver ads on the fly dynamically, depending on situation, depending on site placement. I certainly see that coming down the line. And also, as part of that is to kind of tie in better split testing, actual split testing, where you can do have multiple assets that you can swap in and out dynamically by Amazon, not where you're using a third-party service to turn it on once a week, but actually have it truly, round robin type of split testing, and actually be able to measure that and really test creative to see which ads and which creative are, pulling the best numbers depending on what you're focused on.
I would say I'll just add on top of what you guys said, because I agree with all of you guys. Just from like a user perspective, I think like everyone's saying that a lot of these new features are going to be rolled out. So like the level of technical savvy you're going to have to manage this is going to be pretty intense. So just keep in mind that they'll be rolled out on Campaign Manager. So that's going to get more robust. I think bulk file as well will get more robust, and then the software stuff. But just keeping your eyes on those three items would be important, because not just one of them if you want to be like super technically savvy. I mean, software solutions, yeah, because they roll them out in like each one of them in different phases, but it's always good to keep up on three. So it's just going to be more like, I don't know, man. I mean, like, yeah, it's going to be intense, man. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I think we're always kind of, it's like, something comes out on, pretty much a weekly basis, and we're like, it's like, oh, wow, cool, something new. It's like, okay, nothing's changed about that. But we always like, because I meet with my innovation team each week, I always kind of challenge and say, it's like, yeah, but what if we could do that? What if we could do something that was outside of what Amazon intended by rolling out this feature? What if we could, pair it with some other tactic? What if we could do, kind of like what, Aaron was showing, was talking about earlier, is like, well, we've in the past you've ignored, ASINs that didn't convert, but if you put it in this different way, in a different tactic, you can actually, breathe some new life into it. So any kind of change that Amazon introduces, which is all frequent, is a new opportunity to resuscitate tactics that didn't work previously, and to combine different things. Like we were saying, like Destiny brought up, like we haven't even touched on things as far as like, lightning deals and coupons and all these other things that you can do with listings that play into the advertising, especially display advertising. So yeah, definitely. I look forward to it. I'm excited to see it, but it is, even for us, it is kind of a challenge just trying to keep on top and just kind of come up with a strategy for every new thing that comes out.
Hey, Brian, I'm gonna have to jump off. I've got another meeting I gotta run to, but it's fun as always. Looking forward to it next time.
Absolutely.
Hi,
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for coming.
Guys.
Enjoy your
Liz.
call. Tell everyone I said
I know
hi.
we ran long today, so.
Yeah, 90 minutes next time for sure.
All right. Aaron, did you want to pop anything in here regarding predictions?
You know what, prediction, just as hopeful thinking. I hope that like Amazon just lets self-serve within the Seller Central or the new combined platform just be way more full funnel by allowing more remarketing capabilities, right? So like on DSP, that's just awesome how much you can remarket, specifically to like how they first seen either your product or someone else's product. So just getting way more capabilities with that would allow us to spend way more money, which which is what they want, right? But we'll be making more money with that too, because it really is full funnel, and that really is effective when you use it the right way.
Right. Okay, very good. Cool. All right, so the last item here before the final questions, and that has to do with the, obviously we've run long because we've lost a few people along the way here from our panel. So the negatives thing, it's not supposed to be simply just pessimistic. It actually is saying, it's like, okay, where are display ads not appropriate? What are they? How are they weak compared to sponsored brand ads, sponsored product ads? What is the disadvantage of a display ad versus some other ad type?
I would say,
Oh
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quick. So one thing is, one of the things that you get from spending money on sponsored products, and to a certain extent, sponsored brands, is keyword and search term data. So when you do display, you don't really get anything back from that in terms of feedback that you can use to further improve listings or adapt to the shifting seasonality or changing marketplace, whatever it might be. So that little like feedback loop is missing out of there, which is, unfortunate. That's something nice to have in the other ad types.
I would say the only negatives, I guess, compared to sponsored brands, I won't repeat anything, but compared to sponsored brands and sponsored products is the volume itself. And then the, historically, like, there's been tons of studies on how sponsored products really helps with keyword ranking, and like it's very close correlated and stuff like that. So like that type of attribution is not there. So like it's not as impactful like on the front end, or like at the, I don't know how to explain it. Like if you're 80-20ing it, the sponsored products is really the lion's share of the traffic. So it gets like the majority of the results. And so I think that's a huge negative, just because that means that it might be overlooked. And yeah, I think it'd be overlooked, but it also doesn't have the like impact. If you weighed out the percentage of impact from an ad standpoint, it just doesn't have as much as the like sponsored products, for example.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, it's really easy to I mean, just depending on how many hours in the day, and this is even worse for those who are non-agencies, who we've got teams, we've got processes, we've got systems in order to manage that and to schedule out all the different ad types that we get to work with. From a typical brand, it's kind of like going, look, I've only got so much time in a day that I'm going to spend on my advertising. Where do I need to spend my time? And it's really easy to say, it's like, well, I'm going to focus, I'm going to use Pareto. I'm going to focus just on the 20% that's going to produce 80% of the result that I'm looking for, and everything else gets ignored. The problem is that if you're a one person, if you're that one person in the role and you're spending 1 or 2 hours a day on advertising for your account, there's only so much you're going to accomplish in that time without actually having a supporting team. Now, some of the brands say, oh, we've got 2 people. Great. You basically now have 100% advantage over that one person brand that you're competing against, simply because you've got 2 people who can step in there and work 2 different aspects of the same advertising. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that, Sean, is that a lot of things can and easily get overlooked simply because there's a finite amount of time and focus.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, chiming on that, like you guys both said, like the volume and the lack of resources makes display, at least self-serve sponsored display, I mean, kind of last priority. But thank God that they recently launched the bulk operations for sponsored display, so you can manage at least bids within existing campaigns. That helps us out a lot. But also because of the lack of volume from that, we just had to like update our bid management system to be able to adjust for sponsored display, because we get clicks and impressions so much less compared to like sponsored products. So they need to be kind of like looked at and optimized in a different way.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot more fine criteria, or it's kind of has a tighter threshold compared to sponsored product ads, where you're like going, well, this is statistically significant in order to trigger. Where it's not, I can't afford to do that. I've got to make decisions faster than that. Yeah, because there's less data. You're not talking about millions of data points coming in on a product. You're talking about like, well, it met my my 5 click threshold. It's like, anybody who's any kind of a mathematician, it's like that's just not accurate. It's like, well, but it's what we have to work with.
Yeah.
So you got to make decisions there. George, you want to chime in there?
Sure. I think disadvantage at the moment I see is the real estate space on desktop ads for display. I think on mobile they can take up a really good amount of space and be prominent, but at the moment they just don't get that exposure that I would love them to get within Amazon. So that's kind of one advantage. That's one kind of key advantage I see. But I guess it's the more spend that goes through it, the more space they'll give it, and they'll test it out at some point.
So you find that as a benefit or a strength of display, or a disadvantage of?
No, that's a disadvantage. So it's a disadvantage because it can sometimes on desktop get lost across all of this other information that's out there. So you don't get as many click-throughs as you would on a mobile, for example, with the display ads.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything else before we wrap up with open questions and closing statements?
One super quick thing, just the point you made earlier about predictions that's going to come to sponsored display. If you really want to understand where Amazon will probably take this to, you're going to have to think about where they look, and where they look is someone like Google Ads, because Google Ads is like the mecca of the PPC platform.
Right.
A lot of people use Google Ads platform as a reference point when they're building out their platforms. I just saw, like, for example, with Bing, they were just blimmin' copying Google when they kind of started, and even with Amazon, we were able to predict a few things and features that would come in, which then did, because they're looking at Google. So that's like the most seasoned platform, I think, at this stage in the PPC space. So they're going to be trying to do as much. And even Google's display advertising, again, we've seen similar things on there too.
Okay, very cool. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, Sean, do we have any? We have questions?
Yeah. So we got like 7 questions.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Luca Lou. Hey, Luca.
What's up?
Sometimes I use product targeting my SKU A, targeting my SKU A. So just targeting the same SKU. I have good conversion and sales, but I don't know why this is working. I know PDA can target competitors or own ASINs, but SKU A targeting SKU. I'm not sure how these ads are showing up. Kindly advise.
So I think that sounds to me like
question.
I don't know. Yeah, that's tough.
The defense.
Yeah, because it sounded like the setup that was being tried there was running is attempting to get an ad for a product showing on its own product detail page,
Yeah.
which by default, Amazon's probably not going to let you do that, right?
Said he
Unless
has
you're
good
using a variation. It's much easier to get a variation or one of your other products to show and just kind of cross hatch those so that you're running, your other, SKU B on your SKU A listing as an example. Or does anybody have an opinion on that? There's the debate right there.
Okay,
I
cool.
know for
Thanks.
sponsored
Well, it
products,
sounds like she's saying it's working though, right? It's currently.
Yeah, he's saying it's working. He said it's working. So on somebody.
It is showing. Okay.
Yeah, it is
I would
showing.
say,
There we go. Yeah, he was saying it is showing. He just doesn't know why it's showing, and he's asking us. He doesn't know why the ad's showing up. Like he's saying it's getting good conversion in sales, but he doesn't know why the ad's showing up. And yeah, I don't know.
There's an auto campaign.
No, he's using a product targeting campaign, SKU targeting SKU. Like he's targeting his own SKU, and he's getting conversions in sales. He doesn't know why.
I would guess that sounds almost like he probably has some pretty weak competition there too. So I wouldn't think that the volume going through there is very high. So it seems to be working, but it probably wouldn't take much for a competitor to walk in with a similar ad and Amazon want to choose that ad over a product's own ad, with the same ASIN.
Yeah.
George has got an opinion on this, I can tell.
Is he doing that through display ad, or is he doing it through just sponsored product ads?
He says product targeting, but then he says product PDA. Oh man, so Luca, you might want to
probably use an advertising
display.
Specify the SKU type, the ad type, just because like when it comes to language, right? There's like product targeting, then there's sponsored display product targeting, and then there's PDAs. And it's not that they're different it's just that they're like kind of slightly different. So it's like hard to answer the question when we don't know which specific ad type it is.
Right, because if it's sponsored products, you could be targeting it, but it wouldn't show up on the page. It'd just be following it around. But then if you're advertising your own product, I mean, I know in the data I've seen that has happened for us, but I'm trying to recall if it was part of a display ad or if it was some other ASIN targeting method, either in an auto or a sponsored product campaign. But I've definitely seen that myself. Haven't really thought much of it past that, but it is a bit of like a snake eating its own tail kind of situation, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, eating its own tail. That is true. Well, it should work. It's just a case of how many of those placements are you actually keeping, Okay,
cool.
What else we got, Sean?
So Michael Schneider asks, are there any DSP provider agencies that you know of that allow the seller client to control their own ad creation and setup?
I think that there are platforms out there that allow you to do that. I don't have any that are recommended. I've heard of that. I don't know if they're still around or not, but.
Like the reselling access, or is it a question of them wanting
they're basically
more
reselling
control over their creative? Like, and they want to have total control over the creative, for instance. Because if you work with anyone that offers DSP, you should have input on creative. That makes sense. Some clients want that, some don't really care, but yeah.
Yeah, I think
if you want,
basically, is there an outsourced self-serve, option? And I've heard of somebody doing that, but I don't know.
There's two instances. Yeah, so there's two instances where I've seen this. One is like the mega accounts, the big boys. They tend to get their own, but then support from Amazon. But they're the type to have a team internally that are managing everything to do with the paid ads. That's one area I've seen. Another area is those with deep connections within Amazon that somehow managed to get a DSP account back in the day when Amazon were just desperately trying to get it out to people. And this is like post 2 years ago. So that's
how I got
situation.
Huh? They're desperate. That's how I got in. I got in a long time ago. Just like, jump in, man, please. Give us the chance. Sorry.
Yeah, I want to say that I've
Interesting.
seen like a software platform out there. I don't remember who it was, but where they basically had their own DSP account, and they were simply just kind of almost like subletting that DSP account.
It's interesting because the problem with that is when you give someone access to a DSP entity, they can see every single account.
Yep.
As a situation, and we've had that question with some of our clients, and they said, "Can I have access? I want to proactively be doing stuff in the account," and we've just not been able to.
Same here. Answer is no.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Oh, and then Luca, he followed up. He said it's not showing up on the detail page, but it's getting conversions. I was wondering. I think he's wondering. Oh, I was wondering product targeting. Is the targeting keyword based? So he's referring to product targeting.
Yeah, I mean that can still show up in search results too.
Yeah, it follows the ASIN wherever it is. So yeah, it can be even on a competitor's page, or it can be on a search that shows up. Yeah, so that's I understand that.
Yeah. So probably, Luca, since it's not showing up on the detail page, you're probably getting conversions from search results because they do pop up on the search. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then
if Luca has the second product, I would recommend crisscrossing the ads so that you're running SKU A on SKU B and SKU B on SKU A. That's how we would set it up. Because that actually has a certain reliability, being able to show to defend your own brand. You're just not using the exact same product as the product detail page.
Cool.
What else we got?
Peter Luxembourg, are sponsored display ads available in EU?
I don't see them in the US.
Germany, right?
I actually don't.
I'm trying to think because I should know the answer to this question. I think we've seen it in beta in some accounts in the EU.
Some accounts.
Yeah. I would have to say I would think that was the UK only, although I don't have it open in front of me. That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I don't know, Brian. You say Germany? You've seen them in Germany?
I was gonna say I think I've seen it with Germany too, but that may have been just a beta account that we have, like a rare example.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got anybody who's advertising in Europe where we have like any kind of significant management for display ads yet, but I'm pretty sure we've had that conversation with a partner who did actually have some kind of access to it, but they were specifically in Germany.
Cool.
So, okay.
All right, next, Michael Schneider. Does DSP allow for video ads? If so, are the requirements the same as the video ads in Sponsored Brands video?
Yes, they do allow video ads. You can create video ads within this DSP. They're different to the sponsored brand video ads, and they haven't, to be honest, performed as well as the sponsored brand video ads. Also, Amazon's pushing heavy on their OTT video ads that they're doing, and that's it's like 10 grand requirement that they're asking for you to spend on there. With the video ads, if I'm honest, I've not had the most success with it because when I have done the OTT ads, there's no way to track conversion. So if you're looking for exposure, it's great, but you can't really click, especially if you show up on IMDb or on Prime. That's been my experience of it.
Dude, I kept laughing when you said OTT, because in Britain it means something. It's like a slang word for like you're too OTT, meaning you're too like over the top.
Over the top.
It's over the top advertising. So yeah, that's a video over the top.
That's funny. Okay. All right. Sean, any others?
Yeah. So we got Abe Homali. Hope I got that right, man. I'm trying to get, we work with so many people from across the world. Pronunciation, names, man, I need to just have like if ROAS and ACOS aren't good measurements for DSP performance, how do you measure success?
New customer acquisition.
New to brand sales. Yeah, sorry, that's the same. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a key. That's it. It's a key. Detailed
ROAS
page.
is not, ROAS is kind of a standard industry standard, not so much on Amazon, but everywhere else, ROAS certainly is a measure that you can do. It's just a case of whether or not the ROAS on Amazon advertising matches up to what you can get off of Amazon. It is a measure.
Yeah, new to brand's a good one. Maybe I don't know, add to cart. Although if they're not making purchases, that might indicate there's something wrong with the whole purchasing sequence, right? If they're doing a lot of add to carts, but then not many products are actually sold. But I think some agencies at some level might report to really big companies and say, we got 3 million impressions. And then maybe that's something that they're like, oh, hell yeah, sounds good.
That's Amazon.
Yeah, well, I mean, like
30 million
maybe Ford Trucks is like after that. They're like, oh, we got so many impressions. That's great.
That's
Their
that
budget
CPC
is not
life,
focused
man.
towards
That's a
ROAS,
CPC
right?
life.
Yeah, I would
Right.
say
Increase your budget.
it's okay to use like cost per acquisition, but just like understand the different like threshold you're willing to pay for that top of the funnel versus the bottom of the funnel, right? And if you are using like product view page as like a metric, that's like really great for like the top of the funnel to be like, okay, well, like I'm split testing these different ads, these different audiences, and these are all top of the funnel audiences. Which one gives me the best page view?
That's right.
Or add to cart, right? And then start drilling down from there. So it just really depends on what stage of the funnel is at, and then creating a separate threshold just for that stage.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point. So DPV, right? Detailed page views, George? Is that one of the metrics on DSP you look at sometimes?
Page views. I'm going to have to dash, guys. I've got another call I've got to go on. Thank you so much for having me.
We all do. Yeah, we need to wrap it. So, was there a final question?
Maybe we should call it
Yeah, 2 more. Bye, George. Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it.
George. Appreciate it.
Later, brother.
Bye, George.
We got 2 more, and then we can jet.
All right.
So this is Michael Schneider. He says, in your experience, what products do well and why? What type of things do you look for in a product when deciding if it can do well on DSP?
Read that question again. Sorry.
In your experience, what products do well and why? What type of things do you look for in a product when deciding if it can do well on DSP?
Usually the ones that have a longer lifetime value will have, things like subscribe and save, or have some kind of a back end sell, are going to have a much higher, value when running through DSP. Yeah, that's one I would put in.
Yeah.
I'll provide a different example that we've had more experience with, which is products that are higher priced. So let's say something is not $25, but maybe $65 to $120. I mean, we have a product right now going through DSP that is definitely like closer to $150. And so obviously the ROAS is going to look real good if a couple purchases get made. But more importantly, I think these are not products that you're going to like repurchase anytime soon. They should be owned and used, for years if taken care of correctly in this circumstance. So what you have when people are buying those products is maybe their consideration cycle as part of the funnel is much longer. So if you are reaching back out to them after they viewed the page, maybe they thought, oh, I really did want to buy that thing, and actually I see, the price is the same, or maybe there's a coupon on or something. And now's the time to pull the trigger on that. So you have a lot more budget to put towards that too, because that potential, ROAS, return on ad spend, is like much greater for a more costly product. I think we actually don't play as much in the consumables and repeat product space. A lot of our clients have things that are purchase once. We have some clients that are food related and stuff, but we have more experience with the other side, I think.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of an add-on to that. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Is that the subsequent product offers too? Is that if you've got other products, or you're consistently introducing new products to the market that you want to upsell or to resell to past customers, that's a great way to extend that lifetime customer value as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, Aaron, you thinking the same on that? Yeah.
I was gonna say, if it wasn't lifetime value, then it was price, and if it wasn't price, then it was gonna be consideration. Like, is it something complicated that you really need to educate them on, perhaps with a remarketing video campaign or something like that?
Right.
You hit on pretty well. So.
Yeah, education's good. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up here, Sean. Unless you've got another one that's a juicy.
We got one more.
All right, bring it on.
Arseni S asks, thank you for taking the time to answer questions. What advertising reports should be used to track sponsored display ad performance?
Ooh.
None. So I would just say campaign manager at the moment.
Yeah, that's a tough one. One thing I
Is it like
will
Seller
say that
Central display ads?
Yeah,
I think that's what
so.
they mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of suck at the moment.
Yeah, there's not much there. I will say something that's related. So if you have brand registry, you can then use some of the tools inside of brand analytics that you might find interesting. So you can't exactly track the metrics from sponsored display, but you can look at how some of these things might shift over time. I brought up my notes here from the day because I can't remember the name of these reports, but repurchase report, market basket analysis, item comparison, and alternate purchases. Those four, I believe, are in brand analytics. And those are all things that are kind of related to sponsored display. So yeah, I mean, they're related to the other ad types too. But if you see a shift in some of the data in there, that might be a good indicator that what you're doing is working, in addition to just, pure money in, money out.
Just to add on top of that, like the reporting, I know you can't like pull reports and manipulate them, but Campaign Manager, if you know how to use the search bar and you have good naming systems at the campaign level and ad group or just campaign level, then you can just isolate stuff, and then you can actually isolate by ASIN when you go into the ad group. Actually, I don't know if you can do that with sponsored display. ASIN, yeah, I think you can. I haven't looked into the actual ad groups. We just looked at campaign performance. Can you, Aaron, or anybody?
Yeah, you use search for ASIN.
So yeah, you could just search for the ASIN in Seller Central within the campaign or whatever, and then you can just see the performance, manipulate the time frame and the metrics and stuff like that. And then
go ahead. I'm sorry. Arseni, what we do is there's not an advertising report yet for sponsored display within Seller Central, but we just use the bulk file and basically make adjustments using the bulk file now that you can use the bulk file for sponsored display.
The sponsored display ASIN target, does the bulk file works for ASIN targeting? Because I thought it was only auto. Really? For bid manipulations? Because I know you can't. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look at the template again. They update that thing like crazy.
We're getting bugs. Like sometimes it'll appear within the sponsored products tab of the bulk file, like all these types of bugs, but
okay.
it has worked before.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna go with Aaron on that one. It's a qualified yes, you can.
Yeah.
It's got some issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Unless anybody has any closing statements here. I want to make sure from all of you is the slide that is showing right now is basically the full 7 panelists. Is that right?
That's right.
That's it.
It is. Okay, cool. All right. So just kind of recap here. So I do want to say thank you for joining today, and certainly I appreciate that each of you came along, and contributed so heavily for each of our audiences here, talking about this was, of course, the PPC Battle 2020 round 2 for display ads, including the sponsored display ads on Seller Central and Advertising Console, and of course the demand side platform, or DSP. I want to thank George, Destiny, Aaron, Brent, Liz, and Sean. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really love spending time with you, and appreciate all of the value and the input that you provided today. I look forward to next panel session, which is going to be PPC Battle 2020 round 3, which we're going to dive into the big daddy, which is the sponsored product ads.
Big daddy.
Ooh, the big one. The big one.
Awesome.
Sounds good. All right.
Likewise.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thank you.
fantastic
Bye,
day.
guys.
Yeah.
All right. Farewell all. Thanks for attending. Thanks, Brian, for moderating. See you later.
Later, guys.
Take care.
Yeah.
And Webby.